From long-standing hatred to enemies becoming friends, these are golf's biggest feuds. At the 2005 Booz Allen Classic, pairing Ben Crane and Rory Sabatini was a recipe for disaster, given their reputations as a slow player and a ball of rage, respectively. Despite expectations, the two managed to make it to the final holes of Sunday's round without incident. However, on the 17th hole, after hitting his approach into the water, Sabatini's frustration boiled over and he proceeded to the green before Ben Crane had a chance to take his second shot. Crane eventually hit his shot, but Sabatini had already chipped and putted out before moving on to the 18th tee, without waiting for Crane. Although this feud was short-lived, and Sabatini soon issued an apology, it was telling that many of his peers sympathized with his outburst. And from one outburst to another, that's nothing compared to these two. Conflicts often arise between individuals who are vastly different or remarkably similar, and in this case, it's the differences that triggered the feud. Jordan Spieth prefers to keep his type of drama private. However, his clash with Patrick Reed became anything but in 2014. Jordan and Patrick made a formidable pairing at the Glen Eagles Ryder Cup, and this continued at Hazeltine in 2016 and at the 2017 President's Cup. But in 2018, tensions between the two began to simmer. When Reed was denied relief by an official at Bay Hill, he grumbled, "I guess my name needs to be Jordan Spieth, guys." Soon after, at the WGC match play, Reed made a joke about carrying Spieth at the Ryder Cup, but it wasn't until later that year, while in Paris, that their feud really escalated. The two didn't play together at the Ryder Cup, and Reed added fuel to the fire when he gave a controversial interview to the New York Times, saying that Jordan Spieth didn't want to play with him. Reed instead said that he didn't care if he liked the person he was paired with, or if the other person liked him at all, so long as it works and it sets up the team for success. Makes sense. The feud between Jordan Spieth and Patrick Reed, while mild compared to others in the world of golf, is largely attributed to Spieth's composed personality.
Breaking putt. This is my home course, and I've never seen anybody make the putt. And a small crowd had gathered, like you would expect. And he kind of said, when there's a crowd on the last hole, I never miss. And he kind of steps up.
And when two vastly different personalities are repeatedly placed in close proximity, tensions are bound to escalate. In this case, Patrick Reed is being put in close proximity to the golden boy of golf, Jordan Spieth. The dynamic between these two players creates a storyline that's as compelling and intriguing as their clashing personalities and playing styles.
If it wasn't a crazy year that was in 2020, I understand. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to go back to where it's the tournament champions, where it's the champions of the previous year, but at the same time, we had 3 months off there, so you're...
Spieth's even-keeled demeanor and proximity to Reed, who is known for his controversial antics on and off the course, is bound to create tension. The contrast between the two players is what makes their feud so intriguing, and it adds an extra layer of excitement to the game of golf. Whether it's a friendly competition or an all-out feud, the relationship between Spieth and Reed is a storyline worth watching for years to come. No feud between two players has been as public as our next feud, though. For those who may have missed it, Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau, two of the most well-known, beloved players in the world, have been publicly airing their grievances toward each other for what seems like an eternity. But in reality, though, it's only been 3 years. People's perceptions of their behavior vary, with some viewing it as a bitter rivalry between highly competitive individuals, while others see it as a fabricated feud designed to attract attention on social media. Regardless of the root cause, keeping track of the details of their feud is becoming increasingly challenging. To provide a clearer understanding, here's a timeline of their conflict, from how it started to where it currently stands. Like many golfers, Koepka is frustrated by slow play. In January of 2019, he publicly expressed his frustrations with slow play on the tour. He took aim at DeChambeau in particular. The criticism of Bryson's slow pace reached a boiling point at the 2019 Northern Trust Tournament. Videos of Bryson's extensive pre-shot routine circulated on social media, causing tournament broadcasters and multiple voices to express their annoyance. Turns out Koepka wasn't alone in his frustrations after all. Fellow tour pro Eddie Pepperell was happy to fan the flames, publicly calling out DeChambeau on Twitter. However, afterward, the two struck a truce, but their temporary ceasefire was short-lived. When Koepka appeared in The Buff on ESPN's Body Issue, DeChambeau decided to make a derogatory comment on his Fortnite Twitch stream about Koepka's photos. Arguing online, Bryson said Koepka's genetics didn't make him look good, saying he wasn't in peak physical form. Koepka fired fired back with a confident response, reminding Bryson that while he may not have abs, one thing he does have are more major wins than him. Ouch! Shots fired. Speaking of bitter feuds, I wouldn't be any good at my job if I didn't mention Sergio Garcia and Nick Faldo. These two have had one of the longest standing feuds in the world of golf. The roots of their feud can be traced back to the disappointing 2008 Ryder Cup, where Faldo's captaincy was considered the worst in Europe in 40 years, resulting in a loss to the Americans at Valhalla. The defeat was felt more acutely in European circles than it appeared from the outside, leading to a change in the way captains were selected for the team. In 2014 on the Golf Channel, Faldo responded to a comment about Garcia's Ryder Cup performance by calling him useless in Kentucky. Although there was some back and forth between the two at Glen Eagles, the best response came 4 years later, after Garcia won 3 points in Paris and became Europe's all-time Ryder Cup points leader. When asked about his feelings, he famously said, "It means a lot to him, having passed some of his heroes," and of course mentioned his rival Nick Faldo for good measure. And of course, we have to look at the legend himself. Who's he been stirring up trouble with? Like Reed and Spieth, Tiger Woods and Sergio Garcia are two very distinct individuals who seemed predestined to clash. Tiger is the distant legend who is confident and private, and until recent years was content to reveal very little about himself and remain largely a product of our imaginations. On the other hand, Sergio is a highly emotional and outspoken character who, due to his nature, tends to say and do things that are not always wise. The animosity between them began to build from the moment Sergio challenged Tiger at the 1999 PGA Championship at Medina and continued at the Battle of the Bighorn, a made-for-TV event where Sergio defeated Tiger and celebrated with excessive glee, prompting Tiger to spend the next 15 years consistently defeating him whenever he had the opportunity. The stark contrast between the two men seemed to evoke irrational responses from Sergio.
You know, sometimes you have to pay attention to what's going on, because, you know, if the other guy's hitting and you do something when you're in the crowd is going to respond, and, you know, it's going to affect the other player. Unfortunately, it didn't help me very much.
Most notably, his intensive remarks at the European Tour Players Awards dinner in 2013, mentioning Tiger Woods' style of play, which was clearly an act of lingering resentment stemming from his collapse against Tiger at the Players' Championship weeks earlier. Despite the years that have passed, there has never been any resolution between the two, and it seems unlikely that they'll end their careers on anything but unfriendly terms. The intense competitiveness between Tiger and Sergio adds an exciting dynamic to the game of golf, and their mutual dislike only fuels their desire to outperform each other on the course, and fans love it. The intense nature of their rivalry creates a legacy that will forever be remembered in the annals of golf history. So, from long-standing hatred to enemies becoming friends, these were golf's biggest feuds.